Well, first and foremost, Jevon, thanks for lending some time today. Before we talk about you in Miami right now, I kind of would like to give the people of Canada a little bit of your journey and how you got to where you are right now. So if you want to start, your dad was a coach in the CFL for a bit. I know he played also, but do you remember much of your early days in Coquitlam, British Columbia?
Remember as much as possible as a little kid. Grew up in Coquitlam, went to Nestor Elementary. I played a lot of sports. Played lacrosse, box lacrosse, of course, soccer. Those were my first two sports that I started with. My dad's been a coach as long as I've been alive. He personal trainer, football coach, etc. I've got an older brother, a younger sister named Jada, an older brother named Jameer. And so we were really heavily in the sports and the community and whatnot.
Love that. Okay, so now let's get on to high school. At what year did you know when you're at Bishop O'Dowd, like, hey, I got a shot here to go D1, be a premier player, and start picking schools?
I'd say my sophomore year, I was like at a camp. It was like my first actual college camp, and I was like playing really well, playing corner / safety, and I was doing a good job. And then coach from Utah State, Coach Shaver from Utah State, came up to me. Then the next day, he called me, offered me a scholarship. Right then and there, I was like, okay, like I always believed I could, but that like solidified the fact that I like am actually what I say I am. So it was a sweet gesture from him.
One of the things I found fascinating about my journey was how, I decided to sign, and I ended up going to Rice, nowhere near the pedigree of Oregon. But how was that decision for you? You said Utah State was your first offer. If you're going to Oregon, you definitely got a bunch coming in. So how did you land on Oregon? Was there any push-pull? Was it something you relied on your family as well to kind of figure it out? Was it a official visit that made you choose there? What all went into that?
So I was during my time being recruited, I was also in the 7-on-7 market and or the circuit. So we were like traveling to these teams on the West Coast. My team was really good, so we would go up to Oregon, go up to Washington, visit those schools. We went to all the Pac-12 schools around the West Coast. So I had always envisioned myself playing in the Pac-12 just because I grew up watching it. Started talking to my family about it, where I wanted to go, what best aligned with my values, and what I wanted to study in school. It boiled down to Notre Dame, Oregon, Washington, and Cal. Oregon was like number one. And then on top of that, all the gear and the unis and stuff. So that was also
I was waiting for that.
Yeah, that was also pretty sweet. That was also a sweet deal. So one of my close friends, like we've been friends for a long time, Steve Stevens, he plays safety as well, was being recruited by Oregon, and he committed to Oregon at passing down. I'm like, all right, so my boy committed to Oregon. I'm gonna go to Oregon. So call Hayward, call Taggart on the drive back up, called him, and basically committed then. A bunch of coaches were calling me from other places, trying to see where I was going to commit at, and I posted I was going to Oregon.
So let's get into your days at Oregon. So obviously, coming from a good high school, you said you guys won state. You go to Oregon, it doesn't get much bigger than that. You're a freshman on campus. Like, how was it that first year and even those first few days trying to make your mark? Did you enjoy it right away? Was there any trials and tribulations? Or did you kind of go in right away being like, hey, I can play here?
It was kind of like solidifying myself or establishing myself as like a top player. But coming in, I wasn't the highest ranked player like going to Oregon. It was Steve and a couple other guys that were before me. So coming in, I was kind of just very green, very ready to learn and try to make my impact wherever I could. Started off on special teams earlier in player run practices and stuff. But once we started to like really, once I started to get a grasp of the playbook, which didn't take very long, and like the coverages and what they wanted me to do, I started to make an impact and started to get picks in practice. And once I started doing that, I became, real comfortable, and my teammates started relying on me. And then, I kind of snuck my way onto somewhat of like the second team, whatnot. And that's when I kind of really felt confident about myself and about my ability and how I was able to, compete at this level. And then that's when I started, really talking shit and really started balling. And, that's when the fun really started happening. Once I became comfortable and confident. And then after that, they gave me the tools and was like, yo, do your thing. So
your junior year, how was that? And then transitioning, like, hey, am I going to go into the draft? Do I come back? Was that a tough decision for you? Was something you relied on your family or something like, hey, I'm ready to go to the next level?
3 practices into spring ball, and then COVID hits. And so everybody kind of goes home. I'm still training like that whole time. So I'm not like really losing any type of, muscle or anything like that. I'm still like locked in for the season because I'm thinking the season's going to come back once everything settles out. And then in I think June or something, Mel Kiper's top 10 came out, and I was like number 9 or so on that. So I'm like, all right, I've got the respect from college football and whatnot, and the scouts from the league, and I feel confident in my ability, and I know that this year is going to be super fun, and I'm going to have a great time. So I'm just ready to do it. Boom! Come August, they canceled our season. So talked to my parents, talked to a couple other people, started chatting with some agents, and got their view on where they see me and where I would fall, and then I just decided to opt out. Me, Panay, Brady Breeze, Thomas Graham, we all opted out, and I decided to give it a shot for the league. Fast forward to the draft. I had no idea that the Dolphins were gonna like come get me. But I'm on the phone and it says 305. So I'm like, oh shit, it's Miami. So I'm like, hello, and then Flo's chopping it up. Right, I'm on the phone. As I'm on the phone, Javonte Williams is going, and then they're like, the Broncos select, and they just said Jevon. So it sounded like my name. So everybody around me starts screaming, and I look at this TV and I'm like, what are y'all screaming for? Like, I'm not going to the Broncos. Like, it's not them. And then, because I literally told him, like,
That's nuts. I see. I mean, I'm picturing it. That's crazy. What are the chances?
I'm like, yo, I told him, I'm like, oh, it's Miami calling. And I picked up the phone, and they're screaming because the Broncos picked. So I'm like, guys. So then they got the camera in front of my face and everything, and all the lights and everything, and then like my family's behind me, and they get the call, you're gonna be a Dolphin, da da da. I'm like, okay, sweet, all this, chop it up with the owner, the GM, the head coach, and then boom, hang up. Then it's like the Miami Dolphins pick is in. Then the Isley brothers walked up, Jevon, Holland. I'm jumping and screaming. Couldn't get my hat on. I was struggling to get my hat on, and then I have to stand in front of the camera and talk to the camera because they've got like a live period, and I'm just like giving live updates and whatnot, and how I'm feeling, excited to be in Miami. So it was hectic, but it was dope.
Just moving on. At what moment for you did you know, like, hey, in this league, I'm going to be doing what you're doing today? Starting, be a star, out here making plays every week. Was it right away? Was it during OTAs? Was it camp, preseason? Was there a moment where you're like, I understand this game. I got the ability, like, I'm about to light this thing on fire?
I think it really, kind of set in for me. I would say my rookie year when we played Tampa Bay. I think it was game 4 or so. And that was like the game for me where I felt like I was, running downhill, making tackles, affecting the quarterback, really coming into my own as a player. And it was against Tom Brady. We ended up getting whooped that game, but I felt like I had a really good game, and I was really moving around, doing what a safety does, and kind of being like a safety blanket for everybody. So that game really solidified it for me. I felt good throughout OTAs and camp, especially during camp. Like I was really trying to figure out what type of player I wanted to be. And who I wanted to model my game after, especially in the NFL. But after a while, I kind of just figured, just model your game after yourself. Like, just be authentically you. So I kind of leaned into that, and my coach really helped me find my identity and what I'm good at and what I, need to improve on and continue to improve on and build off of, my strengths. So, yeah, it took a little bit, but it didn't take too long for me to figure out who I wanted to be.
Jevon, man, all I can say is I'm up here on TSN every weekend in Canada, and in the country loves you, man. We see the commercials in NFL Canada. You got a lot of love and support up there, not just in Coquitlam either, across the nation. And we're proud that you're a Canadian citizen, man. I know you kind of jetted out a little early, get with the fam, but you got a lot of love up here, and we respect and love what you're doing on Sundays. And I appreciate your time today, man.
Appreciate that. Yeah, of course, guys. Of course.